leaders in BBL Supercoach are incoming. Running in off the back fence to give you the ultimate insight to help you dominate your mates and climb up in the rankings. You're now listening to the Insight BBL Show with your hosts, Braino and Horse.
G'day everybody, welcome back to another live preview show. We've got round 3 coming up very soon for BBL Supercoach. Braino and Horse in the studio as always, mate. We've experienced probably the highest of highs and the lowest of lows over 2 rounds of BBL Supercoach so far. We've rode the roller coaster, so to speak.
Oh, haven't we, mate? Like being a match short day one owner, to see what he's come up with, to go through that, 2 ripping games that have come down to the last ball, to whatever this is that Etihad Stadium's come up with tonight. It's been a bit all over the place, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of tonight, I mean, we'll get into that. I'm sure we'll talk about tonight a little bit later. But yeah, that wicket's very ordinary, and just the preparation of the field in general is pretty putrid for a professional stadium. So, Cooper Connolly's done pretty well to stick around at this point in time, and it looks like Nick Hobson as well is starting to chip in on his end. So we'll keep updates coming through as we see them, but we're here to preview round 3. But guys, before we jump into things, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the like button as well. Help us get out to more eyes and ears. We would really appreciate that and your support. And if you're listening to us on audio, hit the follow button and leave us a 5-star review. Also, guys, don't forget to join the Unlimited League. The Unlimited League code is 650202. It is not late. It's not too late. You can still jump in. 650202 is the code. Supercoach Champions ring to the winner. Weekly prize packs thanks to the standard squeeze. We're going to talk about the standard squeeze of the week tonight as well. So we'll see who won the Unlimited League in the background there while the episode's going. But guys, also, if you do want a little bit more from us and you want to get exclusive access to us, we do have a Patreon that gives all of our subscribers all of the inside goss on helping get their teams, their Q&As. They can ask as many questions as they want. They can get involved and better their teams and set themselves up. And we see a lot of people at the moment up the top in the rankings in the Patreon. So they've started red hot. This is how you become a member.
Want to take your Supercoach game to the next level? Inside Fantasy Sports are bringing you exclusive content all year round, such as weekly expert Q&As, team, trade, and captaincy advice, statistical deep dives, priority podcast questions, and tons more. So what are you waiting for? Get full access to the experts. Go to patreon.com/Insight Fantasy Sports and subscribe to Insight Unlimited today.
We've got our buy, hold, sell articles coming leading into round 3 as well. So we've got plenty coming over the next few days while there is no BBL Horse. Bit sad that we're not going to have cricket for about 3 days, but we've got time to prepare.
No, that's exactly right. We've got a bit of study time, mate. So we'll be sure to hopefully nail who we think you should be buying, holding, or selling to pay up for potentially Glenn Maxwell.
Yeah, that's it. Here's a big talking point tonight. But, mate, what's on tonight's show? What are we going through?
Can I say heaps?
You can say heaps.
Yeah, well, heaps. We're going through the latest news and injuries from round 2. A quick recap of what we've learned from round 1, previewing each game of round 3, so what we've learned from round 1 and 2, diving into the ownership and giving our opinions on the players we think you need to target for week 3, our game day squad of the week, that has become very popular, and also talking VC and C options for round 3, loophole options, and a fair bit more, mate.
Yeah, there's a bit on. So we may as well rip into things, and we'll have a chat first of all about all of the latest news across the BBL.
It's time for some news from around the league.
And as always, the latest news is brought to you by Ryan from Astute Newstead. If you're wanting to get into the home loan market, or maybe your rates are above 6.2% and you want to work out how you can save some cash, you've got to hit up Ryan from Astute Newstead. Won't cost you a thing, no obligation as well. So he'll just have a chat with you about your situation, get an understanding of how he can help you lower your rates or get into that first home or your dream home. So hit up Ryan. His link is in the description below. Now, mate, bit going on in the world of BBL, and it wouldn't be BBL without something happening. We've got Tom Banton, who has been now the Englishman, who's been signed by the Brisbane Heat to come over to replace Tom Alsop, who unfortunately has been ruled out for the remainder of the BBL with that quad injury. 117.5K comes in at import price. Wicketkeeper batsman coming into a double next week. there's a lot of interest there, isn't there?
Colour me interested. This guy can hit a long ball. I feel like he'll fit in all right up there with the Brisbane Heat lads as well. They're coming off an impressive victory last night. 117K. Renegades on the bye next week with Brisbane on the double. That could be a nice little siphon into Tom Banton and make almost 100K cash out of that move alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully Seifert, we're yet to see him bat tonight, but hopefully he goes all right this week we can make a little bit of money and then move him on at a nice little profit. Now, a guy that I'm very, very dirty on, Finn Allen, and his Kiwi mates, Seifert and Ferguson. Now, they've all not been named in their upcoming New Zealand series. So they're going to be here as long as they can be. Luckily, they're going to be here. I think it is up until at least around 5 or 6. I'm not 100% sure on exactly when that is. I think it's based on when their team is playing in round 6 as to when they leave. So we might see Lockie Ferguson play maybe first game of the double. So we'll wait and we'll reassess that then. But good to see them. They're going to at least be able to see out the majority of their requirements in the BBL up to now.
Yeah, you're right. And with Finn Allen, I feel a bit sorry for the bloke. Like there's a lot of weight of expectation on Finn Allen, and he hasn't made it outside of the first over in all 3 games. But you think back, Adam Milne got him with a nice little in-swinger that ducked in off the deck. And then the other night, he inside edged, was it Riley Meredith? And Ben McDermott took a ripper catch down low to his left. And then tonight, that pitch, that's probably cut in, 8 inches off the deck?
Oh, yeah. Look, I absolutely forgive him for tonight. That's not an issue at all. But the first 2 nights, I would have loved to see a little bit more from him. It's definitely a failed Finn Allen pod experiment from me. So I'll be looking to probably move him on potentially next week, depending on what that break even looks like. Mate, we've got Curtis Patterson as well. He sat out with illness from this round's game, round 2. But we will see him come back into the squad. There's a very likely chance he replaces Lachlan Shaw, who is another talking point in itself, who, was a lot of people's wicketkeeper loophole and captain options to take the VC from Matt Short or Jamie Overton. And he ended up playing for the Sydney Sixers, and I think he put together about 8 points. So really tough for owners there of Lachlan Shaw, who thought he was going to be a DNP, but good for Curtis Patterson next week, who probably comes in as a good option.
Yeah, spot on. We've got Jake Weatherall, Braino, who sat out the second game of the Strikers double game week with back spasm. Still waiting to hear news on his availability. Bit sad, really, because that first game, he was cracking the ball really nicely.
Yeah, he looked good, didn't he, in round 1? And even in game 2, I think he's got 11 off 10, but that's Cooper Connolly. Looks like he's out. Oh, no, he's safe. Sorry. I'm very invested in Cooper Connolly as my captain right now, so you might get a few Cooper Connolly
you and I both,
updates as we go. He's top edge 1 and 2 short fine leg, and it got dropped. So he moves to 47. Weatherall looked good. He looked good. I actually picked him as a pod this week, thinking that obviously he was going to be all right. And unfortunately, I'm stuck now with his 11 or whatever he scored. So, but you live and you learn, you move on. Matt Wade, he's going to be out with a hammy until after the new year. So obviously that's positive signs for not only Mitch Owen, who was fantastic. We'll talk about him.
Oh my God, he was good.
How good was he? But it's also probably pretty good for Ben McDermott, who takes the clubs. Gets a little bump there. We know wicket keepers make a little bit more points in the field from those nicks and things from behind. Riley Meredith and Nathan Ellis have been bowling fantastic. Billy Stanlake's been good. So he might find some extra points there.
Yeah, spot on. Love it. And if I was Ricky Ponting down there at Hobart, I'd probably just keep Wade on the sidelines, let McDermott keep, and allow someone like Mitch Owen to, spread his wings and let him go nuts like he did the other night.
100%. Asam Amir, mate, he's here for the double for the Stars. We'll talk about him as a decent option for next week. And I think for me, he's definitely in the conversation. At 1% owned at the moment, he's definitely a guy that we're going to be looking at for the double starting on Thursday. He has been confirmed that he will be here and he'll be playing. And I know what you're going to say, Horse. I was mid-sentence and I really wanted to just stop myself and talk about the fact that Cooper Connolly just hit 2 sixes in a row.
I just went like that, mate. Holy juice.
The desk there. I can see the desk bouncing up and down.
Yep.
Sean Abbott, Jai Richardson and Josh Inglis, they're going to remain with the test squad starting Thursday. So we've seen Jai Richardson tonight for the Perth Scorchers game. He misses this game being in the test squad. Josh Inglis ends up playing and going back into the test squad. And there's every chance Sean Abbott probably misses the first game of the Sixers double starting next week, which is a bit of a shame because he'd definitely be a target too.
100%, mate. Yeah. But it begs the question that, it's 4 overs if Jai Richardson was to play. How does Josh Inglis get to play and then he's kept out? Like it'd just be good for some transparency, I guess, from Cricket Australia to go, look, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it.
Yeah, look, I think, obviously being in having a sporting background and being in that kind of high performance scene for a little bit, I have an understanding of how they track workloads and things like that. Like it's all tracked to the meter of how much running these guys are doing at training, how many balls they're bowling at training is all tracked. So I would have just naturally assumed that maybe Jai has been pushing the limits of his workload over the last 2-3 months. So I'm thinking maybe as a bowler, he would get through a little bit more as opposed to an Inglis who, as a batsman, wouldn't get through as much work. That's the only way I see it.
Yeah, gotcha.
Mate, let's talk about the week that was from round 2 and let's go through that. A few quick points before we talk into who's hot and who's cold, mate. But I'll tell you what, we've been lucky to see some really good quality BBL over the last round or so, especially the last 2 nights. But they finished on this final ball of the game 2 nights in a row, Horse. We've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, we have been. And you can look at it from one point of view with Cricket Australia and them maintaining specific players' workloads and, players being out, players coming in. Bo Webster, for example, batting at 7 and not bowling or whatever. But you look at the BBL as a whole. If you're in the Patreon, you would have seen the write-up that we did on last night's game. It's exciting to be a BBL supporter as a whole. You've got the last 2 games that have come down the last ball. Then you've got the Renegades who came within 15 runs of beating the Stroll. They went down to the Strikers, sorry. But there's good cricket being played by the players that are playing. So Supercoach aside, the cricket's actually quite entertaining at the moment, Braino.
It's good to watch. And it's just nice to see that these guys are getting an opportunity. Even the local replacement players coming in, they're getting a crack. We probably don't want to see Lachlan Shaw as our loophole for our captain play a game, but it's just opening up opportunities for these guys that are doing well at domestic level that deserve a crack. And yes, 100%, I would love to see more of our international talent and more international talent from overseas come over and play in the BBL. And I think that's a work in progress. And I think they do have some things they need to work on in that respect to make the tournament a little bit more appealing to internationals. But at the same time, we're in with some good cricket. I mean, the last 3 nights have finished in the final over. The Stars even got within 15 runs in that first game, which we probably didn't expect.
No, that's right.
So there's a couple of lessons I've taken from this round, mate. Let me tell you what they are, and you tell me if you agree or not.
Okay.
I think chasing the schedule is okay. We talked about doubles. We talked about getting on top of them all the time. But getting in average players on a double, e.g. Jake Weatherald, still isn't as good as getting a quality player with a good role on a single, e.g. Jack Edwards, Will Sutherland.
Very relevant and good information and a good takeaway to take away from this because, well, for people that chase the Stars in round 1 with their double and they've shit the bed, really. Players like Milne, players like McKenzie. We saw Jack Edwards outscore them in 1 game with them playing 2. So you're right. We've got to focus more on role rather than the fixture and average players.
Next week's going to be good because we've got so many options, and we'll talk about all of those options tonight. This could be a longer stream than what we would normally expect, but we'll try and stay on time. But the second lesson for you, Horse, that I've got is I think you've got to back your first instinct and back your first plan. Now, if there's some safe points on offer, and whilst it's kind of playing into our hands at the moment, Cooper Connolly's doing okay. We weren't always captaining Cooper Connolly, Horse. We were on the phone. I was walking through Big W with 2 kids in a pram, and I get this call from Horse, and I'm like, fuck, here we go. What's happening? Because I actually I hadn't fuck all reception, couldn't see the game. And he's like, hang on. They've only named 5 bowlers. Cooper Connolly's going to bowl 4 overs, and he's going to bat at 3. I might change captaincy. I'm like, fuck, maybe me too. And we went away from tell everybody who we went away from instead.
Berendorf. And you see the way the wicket's playing tonight. I'm genuinely concerned. He might be the first player to take all 10 wickets in an innings in a T20.
10 for none off 3 overs. Yeah. He'll be nearly unplayable on this pitch. So I'm concerned. But in saying that, Cooper Connolly's he's kind of redeemed himself a little bit. But I also faded the Jamie Overton VC, which I also hate myself for, considering he scored 160 odd for the week. So Back your initial thoughts and your initial plans. The plan was always to take on Berendorf and back in a 60-plus VC, and I didn't do that. I took it on, and I'm probably going to lose. So always back on that first thought.
First ball, the last over, 6. He's now on 66 or 49.
It's even better when he hits the amps for 6 as well. Final over, and the Scorchers are 136. That's incredibly impressive to get to that kind of score on this pitch.
We were talking early overs of the game thinking that 100 to 120 was going to be defendable on this deck, the way that it was moving through the air. It was darting sideways off the deck, bit of uneven bounce as well. They've done really well to get to 136 as he now goes out. But, yeah, my God, this is a really competitive total for Perth.
That's one of the better knocks that you will see in BBL cricket with what this pitch was doing early. He was 1 off 13 balls. And he finishes on 66 off 50. And yeah, that'll be, especially for a young guy, that's really impressive.
132 strike rate as well. So a little bit of a strike rate bonus as well.
No, a little 10-point bump. So that's nice. Mate, let's talk about who's hot from this week. This is why I'm hot. The shotgun, the explosion is back to blow everybody's ears apart. Overton 164, mate. He was quality. Really good. Especially in that second game. I think he started with 61 in game 1 and then got 113 or whatever it was or 103, sorry, in game 2.
Yep.
So quality from him and Lloyd Pope, who I wouldn't think about in the hot guys, 156. I tell you what, everybody took the piss out of him a little bit after he went for 31 to Daniel Sams, but he's bounced back incredibly well and could even be a buy option in round 4 if the price is good enough.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. And there's another bloke right behind him who was at only 50-something K who's no longer going to be that price, and that's Mitch Owen. That was a very impressive ton that he scored down in Hobart, mate.
Absolutely. He was quality. That's probably one of the better BBL hundreds you'll see. Yeah. There was a chance or two, I think, but I felt like after probably he got to 15 or 20, everything came out of the middle of the bat. And just his versatility in terms of the sides of the wicket that he played as well. Like he hit the ball on the offside as well as he did the leg side.
There's a big difference that I do want to bring up with Mitch Owen too, mate. And that is he had gears to his game as well. We've spoken before about the Josh Browns, the Fraser McGurks that just want to hit everything out of the park. He was selective with what he was trying to attack, and he was keeping out the good ball, which is why we saw the 104 off 60-something rocks. Great innings.
And it wasn't against a mediocre attack, was it? It was against Perth.
No. Yeah.
Facing up against Jai Richardson, Jason Berendorf. Like he got through all of that. And 101 off 103 off 60 odd balls, just insane. Yeah. So very, very good from him and a buy option for sure. Nathan McSweeney, 138, gave the big FU to George Bailey. And I couldn't have been happier for a bloke to come out and bat like that. Just started off really grindy, assessed the conditions, assessed the game, and then turned it up a level with about 5 or 6 overs to go and really took on the anchor role for the first 14 overs or 13 or 12 overs he batted. And then that last 6, he just let go. Perfect pace to an innings and got them over the line in the end. And another buy option coming into a double next round. You can do much worse.
You will definitely see him in Australian colours again. He's just so composed, isn't he? You heard him during the night speak about how disappointed he was to get dropped, but how he realises he's got to knuckle down and just prove the selectors wrong. And yeah, he's just going to go from strength to strength.
Absolutely. Very, very good player. You'll see him again for sure. Matt Short, 115. Now, he's in the hot guys because he get the fifth highest score of the week up until this game. But in saying that, are you happy, Horse?
No.
As an owner?
No. What do you get? 23 or 24 runs out of that or points out of that with the stick? Like he took, 2 or 3 wickets in one game, a wicket in another game. There was a maiden over there as well. So a lot of his points came from bowling and fielding, which we were worried about him not bowling right from the start. So I still think he's a bit scratchy at the moment. I don't think he's far off finding the middle of the bat, but until such time, he needs a little bit of time in the middle.
Yeah, he does. He does. But that's going to come. That's going to come with him. And I can tell you right now, anybody who's considering trading him this week, I urge you to think twice because this game comes up at Adelaide Oval and they're playing against the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have pace on. You know, they've got the Riley Meredith and Nathan Ellis and all of these guys that bowl relatively quick. And we know that Matt Short loves it fast, loves it. The quicker, the better. So for me, if I had him, I'd hold him. I'm very happy I don't. but he'll definitely, regardless of what he does next week, he'll be a target for me in round 4. Riley Meredith, speaking about him, 112 on a single, mate. These single game players, we called it at the start of the year with Riley Meredith. Incredibly good cash cow, very undervalued, and he has the ability to do things like this, just like a guy like Henry Thornton too.
He's sharp. Like, he's up there in the top 5 bowlers for speed in the competition. And again, moving it in the air and then away off the deck. Really good bowler and 112. Will we see this again? I'm not sure, but like, don't rule out an average of 50 for the year for this guy.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Benny Dwarshuis, 107, big target this week, and a guy who obviously is going to bowl death. No Sean Abbott means that he probably takes on a little bit of extra role, I guess you could say. His role probably bumps up a tad. And also, how good's his batting been? He had 20 off 8 balls to finish things off there and win them the game.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what. Oh, and he's been batting above Sean Abbott as well at, I think, 7 or 8. He's been coming in. So, yeah, a really good role, good spot to be in. Benny Dwarshuis, he won't let you down either next week. I can guarantee you that. So he'll definitely be a good play. But these last two, mate, Henry Thornton, 106, obviously, is there a point in jumping on a week early to make sure that you maximise cash gen with Thornton, or do you just wait until round 4 when they have that double again?
No, I think you're waiting. We've got 3 players on the double 3 teams, on the double next week. I don't think it makes sense to go Thornton next week. I think we can afford to wait a week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And Bangers Bancroft, 100 on the dot, on the nose for him. Pretty much held the innings together for the Thunder. They would have probably been skittled for about 90 if he didn't get that 70 or 52 rocks. So quality innings, paced it really nicely and accelerated at the end. Just didn't really have enough support around him.
No, that's right. No, he didn't.
Unfortunately,
well played.
Thunder don't have a double till round 6, so we'll maybe chat about him later, but I still think there's better options. Mate, let's have a chat about who's ice cold coming into week 3. The man still in the freezer at the back of BWS, Chris Green, with a flat 0. And I kind of feel sorry for him because he crumbled in that final over with a couple of wides, a couple of shit balls, a fully that went for 6 to Dwarshuis. It wasn't his night.
No, it wasn't.
Player that'll bounce back, but unfortunately not his night. I'll tell you who else would really, really hurt owners. Hopefully I'm not hitting too many sore points for viewers or listeners here, but Lance Morris with a 3. I nearly called him Lance Steckety mid-round because he was just sending them down at about 132 Ks, half volley length on a...
You're right. I don't think he even knows where the ball's going. He's just hoping.
And the problem was he wasn't doing anything with the ball. Like, there was no movement off the pitch, obviously, in this game because that fucking wicket was flat as a tack. But to add to that, usually Lance Morris at least gets a little bit of movement through the air. There was nothing on offer for him that day. So he may as well have just set up a bowling machine up one end and just sent him down on half volley length. That was a tough night. And
at 10 Ks less per hour than what he'd normally bowl too. So I'm not sure whether there's something going on there or whether he's just managing a load or... Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't him.
Yeah, look, and obviously he's missed this game based on probably what looks like a rotation thing. With I would be very surprised if Berendorf plays the next game. I would say Lance Morris comes back into the team. Maybe Richo plays that game as well, depending on the squad. And I would say now Berendorf is the only one who hasn't been rested. I'd say he's next in line to have a little bit of a break there with Matt Kelly coming in tonight. Bo Webster as well, mate. 3. Now, he batted 7 in this game. I didn't think it was possible for him to bat lower. The most informed all-rounder in the competition in domestic cricket, batting 7 and not bowling for the Stars. What is going on, like, with Peter Moores? Like, there needs to be an inquest into his credentials as a coach at this point.
Someone check the man's sports bet account. He's going.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, there's a bit of match fixing going on there. And unless Cricket Australia are still having a pretty heavy word about what his workload looks like, which I don't know whether they would be, but... Yeah, it's just something going on there because when you go from batting 3 and bowling 3 overs a game last year to going batting 7 and not bowling at all, there's something going on behind the scenes.
There's absolutely something going on. Yep.
What about, we had Jai Richardson with a 7. Do you take much from that?
No, Mitch Owen was just unreal with the stick. Shy Hope, really good supporting play from him as well. But that was just a bit of an off game. He's in the test squad now. We saw Inglis still being able to come back to play tonight. He wasn't able to. It is what it is. We move on. I'm more worried about super coaches who brought in Davies from the Sixers, mate. I don't see him in that squad next week.
Look, it's hard to say. I think that there's every chance he drops out. They've just got – there's too many similarities between Akil Hussein and him in Joel Davies. I think they bowl the same. They've got a similar kind of approach. I know they love Todd Murphy at the Sixers as well. I just don't know whether they're going to drop him as much as I probably would. I think Todd Murphy stays there purely because just they're different bowlers. And Akil Hussein obviously he's the guy at the Sixers. So yeah, it's a shame, but I would love to see more of Joel Davies, but I think he does drop out. So hopefully he doesn't for people that purchase, but I think there's every chance he will. Benny Duckett though, ice cold. He ended up with a golden, I think, didn't he? From who did he get out to? Matt Short. That's right. He got out to Matt Short, plumb back leg, right in front of middle. Ball didn't spin, no feet. And I guess it maybe now gives us a little bit more ammo on the English players start slowly that we talked about last podcast, Horse.
Mm-hmm.
None of these guys really getting going. Ollie Pope was good in game 2 for Adelaide, but aside from that, he's looked a bit scratchy too.
Still, it's taken him a couple of games to get going though.
Yeah, it has for sure. And Moses Enriques I've chucked in the cold list as well. Purely because he's coming off whatever the 100 was that he got last week and now into a 17. He'll still make money, but I think he's a trap and I think he's someone you want to avoid. But I can guarantee you that people are going to jump on next week just because the Sixers have a double.
I'm going to throw one more in there, mate. Sammy Constas with a 0.
Yes, good shout. He still make 20K? Between $15,000 to $20,000 he'll make this week, but obviously he won't play the next round for the Thunder, unfortunately. No. But he could become a DNP, but the only issue with that is the Thunder start playing the first game of the round very soon, don't they? So you can't really even use him as a loop, unfortunately. Nope. Yeah, it's been an interesting one. Lots of hundreds, lots of shit kicking scores. Hopefully you didn't have too many of the shit kickers and lots of the hot guys, but that's just the way that Supercoach goes at the moment. Mate, let's move in and preview the round ahead. And the game previews, as always, brought to you by the Standard Squeeze, helping you drink responsibly and conveniently. Use the code IFS15 for 15% off your order at thestandardsqueeze.com. Now, let's quickly announce, we've got to obviously give the prize out for round 1's winner in the Insight BBL Unlimited League. And that goes out to Tobes Troops, coached by Jeremy, scored a 1,520 and sits at second overall.
Overall.
Very, very impressive week from Jeremy. I'm just looking at his team right here. He obviously went with Seifert. He had Overton on the single. He's faded Matt Short. He's got Jack Edwards, Fraser McGurk. He's got Stoinis as his VC that he didn't take. He looped in Connolly. He looped in Jai Richardson. He had Will Sutherland, the chief, as his captain. He also had Tom Curran, Tom Rogers, Fergus O'Neill. That is probably one of the better starts you'll ever see in BBL Supercoach, I reckon.
That's unreal. Great work, mate. Great work.
Reach out to us, mate. Hit us up on social media if you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, and we'll get that Standard Squeeze prize back out to you, mate. Congratulations on a great week, and hopefully you can go on with it from second. Now, Horse, let's talk about the weather to kick things off, because it is a little bit more relevant this week than previous weeks.
And now here's Ollie Williams with the weather forecast. Ollie?
It's going to rain.
Thanks, Ollie.
Surprisingly, it might rain this week, Horse. What's happening around the grounds?
Yeah, it might. So next round, we've got a couple of days off, ladies and gentlemen. But on Boxing Day, we're off to the SCG, where it's going to be 28 degrees and nice and sunny. So we're not too worried there for the Sixers versus the Stars. It's a double header, mate, because then we've got the Scorchers and the Brisbane Heat at Optus Stadium in Perth, 25 degrees and sun. Friday, the 27th, Adelaide Strikers versus the Hurricanes at Adelaide Oval. Just a nice 21 degrees, not too hot, not too cold. That'll be a nice night there in Adelaide. Saturday at Manuka Oval in Canberra, the Melbourne Stars versus the Sydney Thunder. That'll be 26 degrees there and sunny. But the final game of the ground, mate, is something that I want to talk about because it's the Brisbane Heat versus the Sixers. Both teams are on a double, 32 degrees and a fair chance of rain in the evening there.
So what does that maybe now put questions in your head around how many Brisbane Heat and Sixers players on the double do I want to have next week if we're going to have a bit of rain around?
Yes, definitely. We saw it happen last year. Was it with Perth players in the last round where they got rained off?
Renegades players.
Renegades. Yep. That's right. I had Akil Hussain and he didn't play at all.
Same. I had to trade him to Lance Morris, and Lance Morris got 1. So that was fun.
Yeah. This week he only got 3. He's in great form, isn't he? But yeah, it definitely does play in the back of your mind. And I know we're still 6 days away from the 29th, but it's something that we're definitely going to have to keep in the back of our minds. And one thing I do want to urge you guys at home, ladies and gentlemen, don't blow all your trades before round 1. Just get your team sorted for the first couple of games. Have your moves ready, set, make a bit of a plan, because if it is going to rain and you do need to pivot, then you've still got the trades there in order to be able to do it.
Yeah, bingo. 100% agreed. We'll have a chat a little bit more about this in depth in terms of when we talk about targets for players of these teams. But let's have a chat about Thursday, mate. The first game is at 6:05 p.m. So we need to make sure that we're on the ball there with making sure we've got to these players at lockout. 2 of the 3 double gamers are playing at 6 p.m., not 7:15. So you're going to have to be ready a little bit earlier. Stars at the Sixers at the SCG. I guess in terms of player movement for these 2 guys, I'd assume that Assam Amir would come in for Doug Warren, who played his first game. He looked a lot like Matthew McConaughey, didn't he? A little bit of Matthew McConaughey about Doug
he
Warren.
did. Actually, I didn't mind him. He sort of got the ball through okay, and there were a couple of balls there where he threw up some juicy full tosses, which were dispatched appropriately or accordingly, but I actually didn't mind him. He was all right.
Yeah, he was good. So Assam Amir in for Warren. I would say Milne will come out now, so that the Stars, obviously, he was Mir's replacement, so he can no longer play as the international limit for the Stars has exceeded. So Milne comes out. I would say it's either Paris or Siddle. I'm not quite sure which one. It seems like whoever's played the last one will rest the next one. We might see Steckety, but I'd say it's out of one of those 3 guys that comes in now to replace Milne. Curtis Patterson probably comes in for Lachlan Shaw, which will be a sigh of relief for a lot of people out there that had Lachlan Shaw in their teams. And then we've got Hayden Kerr probably coming in for Abbott, which gives him a bit of extra batting. I think Kerr's a bit of a better batsman than Abbott is, but they do lose out there from a bowling perspective.
Can I throw something up to you?
Sure.
Instead of Kerr, what about Bird?
Could be. Yeah, absolutely. They could go like for like bowler. I don't mind that. It seems like Hayden Kerr might be a little bit out of favour. So if they want that frontline bowler again, Jackson Bird definitely, unless there's injury floating around, which I don't think there is. I haven't heard anything. No. Could be a really nice option for sure.
For sure.
Now, the last game at the SCG, which was in round 1, both teams put up 170 plus. It was 172 to 169. So it's a good batting wicket. I would assume that depends on whether they're rolling up a new pitch or not. So we'll find out obviously in the pre-game. But if they're playing on the same pitch, I reckon it'll probably be pretty flat, but also a little bit slow and low. Sixers love chasing. They've shown that whenever they win the toss, they're going to bowl first. They like a target. How does this change the way that you approach maybe the two teams here that are playing? Would you bring a certain player in over another player if they bat first at the Stars?
If we remember back to Stoyne in round 1, he actually brought up that he doesn't mind batting first in order to get runs on the board, so he can structure the game plan around that. So if you're looking at Stars batting first and the Sixers love to chase and probably bowling first, you can almost predict what's going to happen right here, right from the start. That'll play into Maxwell's hands, I reckon, being able to bat first, just allowing him to play his game at his own pace. He doesn't have to worry about chasing a score. He's definitely someone you're going to want to target this round.
I think so as well. I think obviously most of us would have Marcus Stoinis, so we won't talk about him too much, but hopefully you held him this week because I think he'll be another good option this coming round.
Who are your three, mate, from the Stars? If you were to bring or to play three, given that we're going to talk about the Sixers and the Heat a little bit later in the weather, are you still looking at Curran, Maxwell, Stoinis, or has Curran been a little bit out of form and that worries you a little bit now?
Look, he has been out of form, but I think he's still a good enough. We saw in game 1, he scored 100 points. So in game 1, he scored 100. He's capable of doing that. The role is there. It's really favourable. I don't know whether I think you're outthinking the room a little bit if you're trying to move Tom Curran on. I think with 4 opportunities to score points with ball and with bat over the next round, I think he's a guy that you're going to want to have. Those 3 are pretty spot on. Sam Amir is the other guy that I'm looking at. I don't want to touch Ben Duckett just due to the fact that English players usually start pretty slowly in the BBL. So we call it the Quentin de Kock syndrome. Even though he's not English, He was poor last year for a world-class batsman. So
in 16 games at the SCG, Tom Curran averages 54 Supercoach points per game.
not bad. And he did play, obviously, at the Sixers, so he does know the ground and he knows the players pretty well. So, yeah, it's a bit of an advantage for him as well. I do like that. Yeah, Sam is the other guy I'd look at
for sure
there in that lineup. And a big pod at the moment at 1% owned, so definitely someone you want to look at. Let's have a look at the Thursday night game, mate. The second game of the doubleheader. We've got the Heat at the Scorchers over at Optus Stadium. Now, for anybody who's moving on a lot of their Perth assets, you've got to think twice when they're playing at Optus Stadium, because I tell you what, they're good enough on a single to put up some really big points.
We've seen that, haven't we? Yeah.
How do you see these guys lining up? Any ins and outs?
Banton will come in. It'll either be for Prestwidge or Whitney, I reckon. Both of them were pretty impressive the other night. Prestwidge with a couple of wickets, Whitney with one.
Yep.
You reckon they will go with Whitney or Prestwidge? I think it's one of those two.
Yeah, I think probably. I mean, look, one person I haven't even thought about too much is Spencer Johnson. And Spencer Johnson comes in, that's for Whitney. So we could even see the double where Banton comes in for Prestwidge. Everyone slides down a little bit. Pearson slides down to 6. I think Max Bryant said that his spot was 5. He was told he was going to bat 5. Walter drops to 7. And then maybe we see Spencer Johnson come in for Whitney. If he's fit, I think that's the way that plays out.
I'll tell you what, Spencer Johnson at 120-odd K on the double. That'd be nice.
Yes, please. That would be very nice. He's still 15% owned, mind you. A lot of people brought him in as a loophole, and unfortunately, unfortunately didn't play this week. But again, you can use him as a loop again if you need to. I guess the only other changes I see here for the Scorchers, we see here Richardson is in the test squad. Now it's a question mark as to whether he gets released. I can't see him being released on day one of a test starting. I think they're going to want to keep their guys around for day one because Thursday is day one of the Boxing Day test. So I would naturally assume he gets held within the squad. We see one of Kelly, Ty. I assume now, obviously, tonight,
Hurst.
Lance Morris has missed. Morris would come back in for Richardson at that point, and they'd probably roll with maybe Kelly staying and then flicking Hobson potentially.
Yep, and then Hurst coming in for Inglis.
I think what they've shown as well over previous years, they've loved playing 4 quicks when they can. And the last 2 games on this double, they've played with the 3 quicks. And one of them's been rested, and then Richo obviously is out of the squad now too. So they played with Ty, Kelly, and Berendorf tonight. And the other night they played with Richo, Berendorf, and Morris. So they've leaned on Cooper Connolly to bowl a lot of spin. I don't know whether they like doing that too much. So I'll be very interested to see how many overs Cooper Connolly bowls tonight, because that could impact his role for sure moving forward. But I think Perth are pretty relevant this week for me. Not only are they at home, where they love playing, but they're also playing the second game of the week on the doubleheader, which is the first day, which means that they're probably your prime emergency loophole option source.
I think they are.
What are you thinking in terms of who the players are that you'd move on versus who the ones are that you'd keep for your emergency loop this week?
Oh, if Berendorf plays, he's absolutely in the talking for your round 1 loop as your bowler. And for your bats, I'll be holding on to Cooper Connolly. I think he's good enough to be that, as we saw in round 1, could just pop off as we saw tonight on a shitty wicket. He still comes out and he's only 10 points short of matching Matt Short for the week now. So, yeah, they're probably your 2 for me.
For sure. You know what I'm very tempted to do? As much as I don't necessarily want to, and I know I'm going to lose a lot of money, holding Finn Allen for 1 more week. It just feels like there's this narrative that's been set up perfectly that as soon as everybody mass trades him out after the double, he punishes you. And he goes out and scores 110 off fucking 53 rocks. I just feel like that's coming. And we've been, the presidents of the Finn Allen fan club and unfortunately we're going to cop flack for that. I've already got a few messages saying thanks for setting me up for failure. And he hasn't been good. But in saying that, I tell you what, we're going to miss when he goes large and we're going to be very upset. So I'm tending, if it's an emergency loop this week and you can make your other trades work without having to rely on Finn Allen's cash, I'd love to keep him as an emergency loop this game.
100%.
All right, let's move on. Friday, 7:15, Hurricanes at the Strikers at Adelaide Oval. I'd say Weatherald maybe comes back in for someone like James Bazley. I feel like James Bazley and Liam Scott are the 2 guys that are probably placeholders in this team until their fitness of their other players kind of levels up. Baisley batting at 7 and not bowling for me is a major concern. I feel like he's just probably that guy that gets a game due to injury more than due to performance.
I'm going to go against you here, Braino, and I don't like doing it. Baisley's actually been quite good down the lower order, so
he has.
I think he stays, and I think it's going to be. And I talked up this player last week because last year he was really good, especially with his economy rate. But Cam Boyce has just been a little bit off. He's gone for a few runs. They've shown that they like bowling Matt Short. Lloyd Pope has been pretty good as well in the last couple of games. Do they just roll with Short and Pope and then roll with 3 quicks?
Look, they could. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. If I was to predict it, they love playing these 2 leggies in tandem. I think that they're going to back Boyce to get better and improve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether they're going to give up on him just yet. But look, the pressure's on him. 100% the pressure's on him. He bowled 2 overs, none for 24 in the recent game. He hasn't bowled his 4 overs yet. He hasn't bowled his 4 overs yet in any of the games this year. So that's something to definitely look at. Looks a little bit out of favour. So, yeah, worth looking at for sure. I'm struggling to understand why Brendan Doggett isn't playing.
Same. I
haven't heard any news or anything. So I'm assuming it's not injury-based, considering he was in the test squad.
That's right.
It just seems out of favour for a guy like Liam Scott, potentially, which is interesting. I mean, he can do a bit of both, Liam Scott, definitely a good player. But I would have thought they would have wanted that extra quick to partner Thornton. Like Thornton and Overton are the 2 go-to guys for the death and the upfront overs. They're lacking that one pace bowler, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Although
so it's like
I will give it to Liam Scott. It looked like he bowled all right in the death over last night. He was given an opportunity and did all right with it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You can't take that from him. I just maybe feel like they're missing a frontline quick. You know, Henry Thornton can't do it all. As good as he's been fantastic. I just feel like they probably need that Doggett or that Buckingham to come in there, and they can afford it with their batting lineup being relatively deep too.
That's right.
Now, I feel like this is a danger. I mentioned to it earlier. Now, I skipped over the Hurricanes. I don't think they change in this game. I think they'll just roll out the same team, considering Matt Wade's not back to the new year. But I feel like this is a danger game for non-owners of Matt Short. Now, isn't it just peak Supercoach Horse when you get a guy in for a double like Matt Short, you expect him to get 700,000 and he gets 110, and we just see a Berendorf wicket there caught by Andrew Tye. Fraser McGurk's out trying to slog one out of the stadium again for 2 runs, so no surprise there.
No surprise.
Now, I feel like this is just peak Supercoach for him to fail on a double and then absolutely fucking punish you on a single, scoring 163 points. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the Hurricanes have the strongest bowling lineup. Yeah, Meredith's bowling pretty well. Stan Lake, he's fairly up and down. He's quick, but he's fairly up and down. Doesn't do too much with the ball. Nathan Ellis is good in those middle overs when we're talking about economy rates. Chris Jordan, not too bad, but outside of those 2 or 3, I feel like if Matt Short does get his eye in, he could potentially go very large.
He loves batting at Adelaide Oval as well. That pitch is usually pretty nice. Very, very short square boundaries, which is the strength of Matt Short to just pick him up off the hip and put him into the stands. So I have a feeling I'm going to be punished next week as a non-owner. I'm very, very glad so far that I haven't, but I feel like next week could be the week in between those doubles that he really goes large. So if it were me and I had Matt Short, I'd be holding him this week. I just have a funny feeling that he's going to go big. Now, I also think Henry Thornton could go pretty big in this game as well. Now, Hurricanes have shown that they're definitely not, aside from a Mitch Owen 103 off 60 rocks, which isn't going to happen every week, they're pretty weak, really, as a batting lineup.
Yeah,
no Matt Wade either. Caleb Jewell is shocking.
Oh,
so
I'd actually argue that they look better without Matthew Wade.
Do they look better with Caleb Jewell? Because he's probably just as bad, if not worse, than Matt Wade.
Yeah, he probably is. But let's talk through it. We got Hope actually looked not too bad once he got in the other night.
He's good. Yep.
Who else they got there? Who batted at 3? No, it was Hope
Ben
at
McDermott.
3.
Hope at 3, Ben McDermott at 4.
Yep. Once we start getting Tim David and Chowdhury in, that's when I start to wonder. But if they get off to a start like they did the other night, who knows what could happen. Mitch Owen, it only took him a couple of balls to get his eye in, and then off he went. So For me, Nate, I think this is our buy of the week when we're talking cash cows.
Oh, okay. I like it.
Hmm.
I like it. So you're 100% locked into buying Mitch Owen.
99.98%.
Okay, cool.
If he goes down with COVID and he doesn't play, then I won't pick him.
So he will, thanks to Scobes, who does the advanced stats on money making and stuff mid-round and calculates that all for us. So Mitch Owen comes in at 90K. So you have to pay up a little bit for him. He'll be 90K, but he'll have a negative 79 break even next week, which means that when he walks on the park, even if he gets a globe, he will make you probably 25 to 30K.
It's what we want.
About 25K it'll be, which is nice. That gets him up from 90 to about 115, if my maths is good. So, he's starting to get into that territory where you can move. If he gets 0, you can move him on for a guy on a double that is around that kind of second tier import price at 117K. So that's not a bad play for a guy that was 58K. And he's also dual position, which gives you flexibility too.
Spot on.
All right, mate, let's move on. Stars are at the Thunder at Manuka at this game. I'm surprised you said it was 26 degrees in Canberra because I didn't think it got above 18 down in Canberra, but there you go.
Side note, I have played footy there in the past, being a Southeast Victoria lad. We used to head up to Canberra a little bit and did a pre-season up there. And it has snowed there in the wintertime when the footy's on. So it can get fucking cold there in Canberra.
Canberra's freezing cold. I used to have to go there for work a fair bit at my last job. And, you go down there and basically within 2 hours, your car's bloody windshield's frozen over in the middle of winter. It's not fun. But you know what? It'll be a good game of cricket because last game at Manuka, we saw 183 plays 182 in game 1 for the Thunder. So I tell you what, Stars batsman could be the target. 2 really nice pitches. They're playing at the SCG, which had 170 go up first, and then they're having 180 wicket coming up at Manuka. So Stars batsman, your cheeky little pod on. I don't like Ben Duckett as an Englishman, but I'll tell you what, there's some really nice options at the top end there. Even a Hilton Cartwright at 5 or 6 could be cheeky.
Have I mentioned Glenn Maxwell's name yet?
No. Please tell me about this Glenn Maxwell, young fella, isn't he? He's
young
coming
fella.
through.
I believe that you may have played a bit of cricket with him in the past too, and probably the most naturally gifted athlete you had the pleasure of playing with. Yeah.
Well, let's not make it about me. But yeah, he's a freak. He's just a freak of a bloke in many, many different aspects. So I'd have no surprise. And he's a priority target for me. I think if I had to rank them, I'd rank him either first or second this week as a guy you absolutely need to get in your team regardless. Now, predicted ins and outs for this one. I think I'm not quite sure whether the Stars change. I think they stay the same. Maybe the pace bowling rotation flips between Siddle, Steckity and Paris, and whoever's next up gets a go. But the rest should stay the same. Yep. So we see, I reckon Jason Sanger is the guy that comes in for Constas, and we see Cameron Bancroft go up to open with David Warner. Sanger at 3. I'd say that's how that all shuffles.
Will this be the first time that Bancroft and Warner have opened since South Africa?
No, they opened a fair bit last year together when Warner came back from the last few games of BBL.
That's right, I did too. Yeah.
But Bancroft was good that year. Let's hopefully they can get it back together.
That's right.
But this isn't a prediction, but this is a question, right? To Trent Copeland. Now, can McAndrew please drop out of this team? Is it possible to do? Can we get Wes Agar again, please?
Please.
Please. Come on, man. Wes Agar is a better player than Nathan McAndrew, and he's shown that time and time again. I don't know what he needs to do to get a game, but I would love to see that happen this week.
They went out and targeted him and got him from the strikers, but yet you're sitting him on the bench for someone like McAndrew. Yeah,
100%. See Corey Blackledge in the chats with me. Wes Agar needs to play, and Deadly is also with me. It's a statement, drop McAndrew. Maybe we can get hashtag drop McAndrew trending on Twitter, and then, Copes will have a little bit of pressure on him. But, that's probably the only changes I see. I see Sanger in for Constas, Bancroft up to open with Warner. Otherwise, we see the Stars probably line up the same. I mean, I don't have any kind of confidence in the Melbourne Stars at all, but I think in this game I probably would, knowing they're coming up against the Thunder. But in saying that, look, Lockie Ferguson's been fantastic for the Thunder up front. Chris Green's been pretty great aside from last game. We know he's going to have a bounce back. He bowled really well at Manuka in game 1 or round 1, I should say. So, yeah, anything else? Any other talking points from this game?
No, so Chris Green scored a 0 in this game, and he's still going to make money because he had a break even of -8. So he's someone that I'm definitely looking at bringing in when the Thunder have their double in round 6.
Nice. Love it. Timmy Seifert just went bang over mid-on for 6 for anybody who owns him. Unfortunately, off the door. Unfortunately, off the Berendorf, who a lot of us own too. So, yeah. And that is the danger of picking players that play against each other throughout the round. And we put an article up in Patreon for all of our subscribers. So if you want to get access to that one, all you have to do is subscribe to Patreon, $6 a month. But having double players play against other double players is a danger, Horse.
It hurts.
We look at next week's. We look at this schedule now, and the last game of the week is Sixers against the Heat, which again are both teams on the double playing against each other. Now the Sixers play both games against other double teams, so you've got to look at that. Are they going to start stealing points from each other? And I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
So do you have to maybe lean into one or two of these teams instead of all three? Would you just maybe commit to only buying players from two of these teams?
I would, yes. Yeah, otherwise, like we're seeing it right now, for you and I, as Seifert, just hits Berendorf for another 4, we've both got Berendorf and we've both got Seifert. So while on one hand we're excited because Seifert has now almost got his economy rate bonus of fuck all balls, at the same time we're losing points because Berendorf is just bowling pies. So lean into one team, pick who you think is going to be the better out of the Sixers and Heat for the week, and just stick with them. For me, I'm probably targeting Stars and one of those sides, knowing full well that the weather's going to be good enough for Stars to get 2 full games out. We're still a little uncertain on the weather for that last game.
My only concern is the fact I don't have much confidence in the Melbourne Stars as a team. So
they can't be
hopefully
pus all
Maxwell
year,
back.
Braino.
Can they? But they have been for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think they turn it around.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. You spoke about the wicket in Canberra. Their batting lineup, you've got the likes of Maxwell, Stoinis. Stoinis has seen them pretty well too. Webster. Those 3 alone, like if any one of them get going, like it could be an easy 180, 190.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Webster comes in at 5 for 47, I'm sure he's going to make a real impact at the back end of the innings. So we'll see. We'll see how he goes.
Yeah.
Let's quickly talk about Sixers and Heat, mate. For the record, I'm actually leaning towards fading Sixers. If you want to understand why, you can read the article and check it out, become a subscriber. But I think in terms of these two teams, they both likely go unchanged. If Spencer Johnson doesn't play game 1, maybe he does play game 2. But again, we also need to look at Sean Abbott's availability from the test squad because there's every chance by Sunday, that'll be day 4 of the test, he would have been released by then to come and play. So keep an eye out on that for the Sixers. If anybody's buying the likes of Hayden Kurz, if he gets named in game 1, there's every chance he might drop out when Abbott comes back into the squad in game 2. So just be wary of that. But there is a weather risk. We talked about it earlier. I think the toss is going to be really important if the weather is around. We've had a lot of chat about this in Discord over the last season, kind of talking people through our thinking around weather-affected games and weather-reduced overs games. Mm-hmm. For me, I want my batters batting first and my bowlers bowling first. If I see, and it's a reduced weather game or there's a bit of weather around, and I see, let's say, for instance, the Heat, they win the toss and bat, I mean, you can't really control it because these are both double teams as well. But I'm very happy if my batsmen are batting first for the Heat. So I'm probably going to, lean into one of these two teams and fade the other.
And for anyone that held into Seifert, 28 off 12 rocks at the moment and absolutely pumping it everywhere.
Yeah, Matt Kelly's not having a good time at the moment. None for 18 off 1.2 overs. So, tough going for Matt Kelly at the moment on what would have been an absolute seamer's dream. But it looks like this wicket's kind of started to flatten out a tad. So a very good toss to win. Probably win the toss, win the game in this scenario, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No good. That'll do us for previews of the games, mate. We've talked through predicted stuff. We're obviously assessing the weather. We'll talk a lot more about the weather and stuff, not only on social media if you follow us on socials, but we'll also talk about it inside Patreon for those of you that want an up-to-date idea on what's happening, within 15 minutes of the game starting. Because you need to remember with weather risk, if it's raining and the players aren't ready to go on, Supercoach still locks out at 7:15 regardless of whether it's a weather-affected game or not. So
100%.
you need to make sure that you get all your stuff sorted by then. Luckily, this game's last, so all of these players would have locked out earlier in the round anyway. So you're going to need to be careful of the decisions you make around your Sixers and your Heat players. But, mate, let's talk around trade targets for this week on the double.
Targets acquired.
Now, we've got some pretty well-owned players in these double teams, mate. Who have we got that is well-owned at the moment, but maybe some people are missing?
Oh, let's roll with the stars to start off with. Marcus Stoinis, no surprise, 70%. He's been pretty good. He's been bowling himself. Looks like he's in some pretty good form with the stick as well. 70%, no surprise. Curran at 39%. Some people may have jumped off Tommy Curran. I don't think that's the right play. I still think we need him for the double. If he does stink it up this week, then maybe you look to move on. But for me, I think he's someone that it's only going to take one ball to turn it all around. So 39% is probably a little bit low for Tommy Curran. Maxi at 19% is the big one, though. I would expect that would be over 40% by the start of round 3.
Yep. Agreed. I am targeting Maxi pretty heavily. Isn't this peak Supercoach? Noah Cooper in the chat. Seifert's gone really well. He's in my team. And then literally 1 minute later, Seifert's out. So we're getting some live chat action here, keeping us up to date, which is great.
Beautiful.
Matt Kelly gets his first wicket there of Seifert. So, bit of a resurrection of the strike rate or economy rate there for Matt Kelly finding himself a dot and a wicket. Moving on to the Sixers, mate. Philippi at 36% is the most owned Sixers player that I'd probably be looking at. A decent downgrade option if you do have a Seifert, because I think that could be a nice play, as well as a guy we'll talk about very soon. Moses Enriques, don't buy him. The role just isn't there. You're picking a number 4 batsman that won't bowl.
It's a trap.
Absolutely. Absolute trap. Jack Edwards, if you don't have him, you need to get him. Simple as that. 16% owned. I think he will be... I don't want to get too silly about this claim, but I reckon he's definitely going to be in the top 5 most or top point scorers in Supercoach this year. Based on the role that we're seeing, the only risk that we have here is that with Curtis Patterson coming in, he could probably slide down to 6.
Okay.
So keep an eye out on that.
Yeah.
Oh, look, he's a great player and a guy you're going to want to have. When we get to the back end of the year, he's going to be a guy you want in your team.
Sure.
With the Brisbane Heat, there's only 2 well-owned guys because obviously people have been waiting to buy them. But you got Renshaw at 21% and Spencer Johnson at 15%. They're the 2 above 15% that I think that are the targets for the Brisbane Heat. But we've also got some pods on the double here, mate. Who are we going to look at?
Before we move on to the pods, for the ladies and gentlemen at home, I want them to hear your opinions here, mate. Josh Philippi is projected to be at 122K by the start of round 3. Yep. Tom Banton, who's coming in on the double, is going to be 117K. They're both wicketkeeper bat, Jules. If you had to choose one, who are you choosing and why?
I'm probably going to pick... You know what? One of the games is at the SCG. We know that Philippi loves playing at the SCG. The games that he is playing this week, Philippi, are on flat wickets. Am I right? They're playing at the Gabba for the second game, which is usually a nice batting wicket. Look, I'd lean Philippi if I'm completely honest. I think that...
And
sorry, go.
Does the fact that we've got a Pom coming over here for his first game, we saw Pope struggle right from the start. We saw, even though they're West Indies, Hope, Rutherford, Duckett struggled right from the start. Does that play into your thinking that maybe it is Philippi playing on flat wickets, plays at grounds that he likes, and he's only 5K extra? Yeah,
look, I think there's a very relevant point to make there in terms of a guy that's been playing in Australia as an Australian player versus a Pom coming over in different conditions from day one. So that's one thing you need to look at. Banton, when he was 21 back in BBL 9, shout out to JG on Twitter for this, averaged 48.2 Supercoach points in 7 games when he came over in the Brisbane Heat 5 years ago. So now he's 26. Can he be better, more experienced? He has played in these conditions before. And he did average 49.8 from 10 games playing in the T10 league in Abu Dhabi that just happened just then. I mean, good player. But we're playing with fire a little bit in terms of an unknown commodity.
That's right.
He hasn't played here for 5 years. And we know, like you mentioned, about English players. So, yeah, I'd probably lean Philippi just due to pedigree and just due to the fact that we know what you're going to get with him. I don't know what I'm getting with Banton.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want more of that chat, jump in the Patreon. That's what we're all about, talking through what we're doing.
All right, let's talk pods, mate. Xavier Bartlett, 13%, should be 50% after this round. Mate, I think if you take Supercoach seriously, he's a guy that you're going to want in your team. He's been elite.
Superstar.
Yeah, absolutely elite. Well, we're not going to talk too much about these, in depth, so we'll just fire through them. Paul Walter, 9%. Another guy you need to consider. Probably a little bit further down the chain for me in terms of priorities, just based on what we've seen. Maybe second-year syndrome kicking in a little bit here for Paul Walter. Big Colt status last year was amazing. Bit of a funny, weird looking at bowling action. Shout out to Maxi Bryden, who said this on Twitter, actually, that usually you see that these guys with weird bowling actions, it takes a little bit of time for batsmen to get used to them and kind of understand how to play them. And now maybe they've looked at a bit of film, they know what they're coming up against, and he has been kind of ordinary the first 2 games. So
yeah, he has.
Not as much of a priority for me, but the role is fantastic there. So same role as last year. He'll bowl death and surge. So definitely a guy you wouldn't want to look at. But what about the next guy, mate? Because he has been absolutely lighting it up the last couple of rounds.
Benny Dwarshuis, come on down. He's actually quite nice with the stick late in the innings, isn't he? Knows how to find the boundary, and with the new ball, left armour, moves the ball through the air, gets it jagging off the deck. Not a bad option, especially on the double.
Look, he's a guy I'm going to try and get in my team at some point, and the price is nice. I think he's 144K this week, so that'll probably go up a little bit. Do you know what his break even is?
I'll search for it right now as you're talking, mate.
All right, number 4 on the list, Mitch Swepson. He's done it before, and there's every chance he could do it again. 6% owned. I know he's relatively cheap around that 110, 111 mark, I think. So I don't mind Mitch Swepson as a play next week as well. He is it was the captain when Colin Munro was out, so I think there's a chance that he could have. He's definitely going to bowl these 3 to 4 overs. Don't mind it. Don't love it either.
Benny Dwarshuis had a break even of 27 at 142K. He's likely going to be priced at around 160 to 165 for the start of round 3.
Yuck. All right, that's tough. And then we're going to talk about another couple of guys that are absolute locks for me as well. Nathan McSweeney, 3% owned at the moment, for good reason. He hasn't been playing. But that 138 is really going to kickstart his cash gen, isn't it? So he's another guy along with Mitch Owen. He'll be much more expensive than Mitch Owen, but he's a guy like Mitch Owen that'll come in with a negative break even next week. But he'll have the double. So I would actually say McSweeney's probably a pick over Mitch Owen at this point.
Okay.
What do you reckon?
I like it.
Matty Renshaw, also an option there. A little bit more owned, but I don't mind his role. He's still relatively cheap too, so one guy to keep an eye on. But Curtis Patterson, batting at 3 for the Sixers, could also be a nice little shout. 2% owned at the moment.
It'll be interesting to see which way they go. Especially, is it Greg Shippard, the coach of the Sixers?
Yeah.
With what he said, was it about a week ago, saying that Jack Edwards was going to be the future 3, and he's done nothing wrong. He got barbecued the other night and run out, so he has looked good in that role. Curtis Patterson is a natural 3, so I think you're right. I think he goes into that role, but it'd be a bit disappointing, not just as a Supercoach owner, but Jack Edwards has done nothing wrong.
He hasn't. He has done nothing wrong, but I think he's so versatile that it's actually his biggest negative too, is that he can just slide down to 6 and do a job. He'll come up to 3, he'll do a job. You ask him to open the batting, he'll do a job. So he's just that good of a player that he's so versatile. It's like the Swiss Army knife, unfortunately. It can be a master of, what is it? What's the saying, Horse? Jack of all trades, master of none?
Master of none, yeah.
Yeah, except he is the master of all trades too, old Jack Edwards. But he's going to have to earn that.
I never got that in my cricketing career, Braino. There was a lot of you can't polish a turd, but that was about it.
That's all right. I'm sure you undersell yourself a little bit. Akil Hussain is a guy I'm very interested in, 2%. He had, I think, 2 for 21 off his 4 overs, economy rate bonus really of good. 15 points. The price is the big deterrent for me. He's going to be around that 180K mark. So if you want Maxwell and you want Bartlett, how are you going to get Hussain? I don't think you can unless you sell Matt Short.
What do you score this round? 71, was it?
Yeah.
So had a break even of 67, and he scored 64. So he's going to lose a little bit of cash, but he's still going to be 195K if you want to bring him in. So It's probably a bit expensive, isn't it? Especially if you're looking at your Maxwells and your Bartletts and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there's 4 guys that really put their hand up for me, and then we're not even talking Ben Dwarshuis. It's Glenn Maxwell, it's Xavier Bartlett. I think Paul Walter's up there still in the conversation. I think people are going to fade him based on form, but I think he's still a good shout. And then there's Akil Hussain. And you can't get all 4. It's impossible.
No,
you can't boost and get all 4 of these guys in. How do you rate them? Let's throw Benny Dwarshuis in. There's a 5, right? So if we're calling them the 5 best buys this week, Maxwell, Bartlett, Hussain, Walter, Dwarshuis, how would you rate them? 1 to 5.
Maxwell 1. I'm probably going Hussain. Bartlett 2, Hussain 3. Dwarsh, who haven't I said?
Walter and Dwarshuis.
Yeah, Dwarshuis 4, Walter 5.
I think I've got Bartlett 1, Maxi 2. And then I've got Walter at 5, Dwarshuis 3, Hussain 4. And that's based on price too. On players I think I can actually manage to get into my squad. So tough. It's going to be really tough to work out how you're going to work that. But if you've got Overton and Matt Short, the only way you're going to get 4 genuine guns is if you sell both of those guys, and I'm really not liking selling both. If you have to sell one, sure, I get it.
You can't sell both.
You can't sell both, and I also don't think you can sell Matt Short this week. I just really think he's going to go large. So very risky play, mate. But also, Akil Hussain is on 7th on the list. He's only 2% owned. Osama Mir, we've talked about a bit in this episode. I kind of really like him as a play this week. There's no risk of weather with Osama Mir or any of the Stars players. There is a little bit of risk of weather with the Heat and the Sixers. So that's one thing to consider. And then Tom Banton, we spoke about at the start of the episode, is 0.1% owned for obvious reasons. He only just got added to the app yesterday. So plenty to look at, plenty of pods on the double. If you want our actual opinions and you want to see the buy, hold, sell, jump in the Patreon. But, mate, let's talk about the game day squad of the week before we talk captains and wrap this bad boy up. Now, obviously brought to you by Game Day Squad. Not only free to play, it's free to win. They give away up to $25,000 in prizes every single season in the BBL. You can build your squad, you can purchase, you can trade 4 cards, or if you're a gambler, you can purchase and rip open some packs and level up your squad with cards from bronze, silver, and gold to platinum, diamond, and legend. Compete against us, compete against the rest of the community. We've got a mini league you can jump in and take us on, win some prizes. What's not to love, Horse? All they need to do is use IFS AUS when they download the app, and they get themselves a bonus 3-player rare pack too to get that squad started. What a time.
Oh, it's awesome. And I'm absolutely loving the fact that I've got a platinum Lloyd Pope card that is absolutely Lloyd, making me bulk cash at the moment. Very excited.
Love that. So, yeah, IFS AUS is the code, 3-player rare pack. You'll get that to your email within 24 hours of joining or downloading the app and using that code. So you can chuck it on in there and take us on in the league. We're going to be giving away a yearly Patreon subscription as well. So you'll be able to get all the inside goss on what we do, and it won't have to pay a thing. So very good spot to be. Game day squad of the week, mate. What are we thinking? Because we've got to pick a wicket keeper, 3 batsmen, 4 all-rounders and 3 bowlers. Where are we going with this squad?
I'll give you my keepers and batters, and then you can go with some all-rounders and bowlers, mate. But I think our wicketkeeper next week has to be Josh Philippe. On the double, likes batting at the SCG, and then he heads up to Brisbane. Nice flat deck up there as well. I think he's our choice for our wicketkeeper this week. And then for our bats, let's add a bit of spice. Let's go James Vince, Colin Munro, Benny Duckett. Benny Duckett, second week in Australia, getting used to our conditions. Yeah, there'll be one game where he goes large.
I think, and that's the beauty of the format that Game Day Squad have, is that they take the highest score during a double. So basically they get 2 free cracks at it. And if they go large in one of these games, they're not punished by the shit score they got in the other one. They just take the best score. And I think Benny Duckett could be that guy who's rocks or diamonds. And hopefully we can see some diamonds with a diamond Benny Duckett if you have one of those in there. Our all-rounders, Glenn Maxwell for obvious reasons, Matt Short for obvious reasons. Jack Edwards, I feel, is going to go large this week in one of those games. And also Paul Walter. I'm backing him in. I feel like Paul Walter could go pretty large in one of these games this week and be enough for us in the all-rounder slot. And at the bowlers, we've got Benny Dwarshuis, we've got Xavier Bartlett, and we've got Osama Mir. We've talked enough about those guys. But if you want to, maybe you can copy that team and take us on. Or if you want to take us on, you can jump in the league. IFS AUS is the code. Download the app, get involved. It's free to play and it's free to win $25,000 in prizes. thanks to a game day squad. Now, mate, to wrap this one up, probably would you agree that captaincy is the most important part of BBL Supercoach?
Oh, yes.
Well, I don't know
think
whether
so.
we got it right this week. We didn't get it wrong, but we didn't get it right. So let's talk about and get right the round 3 captains for this coming week.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
It's wide open this week, isn't it? Got a few different options for VC and C.
It is. Let's go with the VC options first. So players that are playing in the first couple of games. Maxwell, Jack Edwards, Benny Dwarshuis, and Tom Curran. My gut is Maxwell this week because I know I'm going to get 2 games out of him. If I knew I was getting 2 games out of the Sixers, as everyone who watches the podcast knows that I am the president of the Jack Edwards fan club, and nothing would make me happier than seeing him go large with the VC armband on. But with that weather just lurking around the last game of the round, I'm going safe with Maxwell.
Look, I think you'd be silly to bypass Maxi in game 1. And the reason why we put these game 1 guys as VCs on the double as well is because I think straight captaincy in BBL is just incredibly unnecessary. There's zero risk in taking a VC considering your emergency. If you set that well and you get your emergency right, you end up getting your emergency or the player that you drops points anyway when you put your DNP on the field. In NRL Supercoach, for those of you that play NRL and have never played AFL or BBL, there's a lot more risk with NRL looping because you are dropping a player, but then you've also got to take your lowest bench player as their emergency score. We don't have emergencies in NRL. So there's a lot more risk there. You cop your shittest score there and you have to factor that in, but you don't have to cop your shittest score here. You just get your emergency right and you're sorted. So zero risk. I think Maxwell to start. And I also think then we move into the captains. I think Xavier Bartlett would probably be my top pick for captain this week for the Brisbane Heat. And then you've also got Paul Walter and you've got Spencer Johnson there in the conversation too. Is there anybody else that you throw in there for the Heat that are playing in game 2?
No, I don't think so. I think Xavier Bartlett's a clear option there. Spencer Johnson coming back from a couple of weeks off. I think I'd fade him. He'd be number 3 of 3. But Paul Walter, you touched on him before, hasn't been in the greatest form, but has a beautiful role. And we all know, as we've seen in the first couple of rounds, the role is everything. So Bartlett 1, Walter 2, Johnson 3.
And while we're on the topic, mate, emergencies on Scorchers players this week. The reason for that, they play game 2. Now, hopefully most of us have Doran as your wicketkeeper loop, so he wouldn't have locked out yet. And you also have Will Salzman as your bench or your bat bowl bench loop. So hopefully you can then use Scorchers players. You'll have your loop available to move things in and out. I think, for me, Finn Allen at bat as an emergency, there's zero risk doing it. I'd be happy to play. If you've got Finn Allen, Cooper Connolly, and Berendorf potentially, you could do Dorf as your emergency bowler. You could do Finn Allen as your emergency bat, and you could play Connolly on field with the role that he's had recently.
Put him in the flex. Yep.
Don't hate it at all. So Scorchers are the emergency players this week. I hate using an emergency on a double because when you've got that extra game to factor in, you're kind of guessing as to whether you should take the score or not. But that's what we think about captains, vice captains, and emergency loopholes, guys, and that'll do us. That brings us to the end of the show. Don't forget to subscribe, hit like if you haven't. If you like the content and you just want to support the show, please hit the like button. It does help us a lot. And if you want to take your Supercoach knowledge, you want to take your game to the next level, you can become a Patreon member, get the latest news, teams, trades, Q&As, access to all of those things and heaps more. The link is in the description to join. And follow us on social media. We're pretty active on X and Instagram and things like that. Horse, any final words before we wrap this one up?
Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's that the Renegades have a bye next round. They're the first team with a bye. Don't get stuck with too many Renegades players.
Good point. You can use your Renegades as your loophole options, your DNPs next week potentially as well, your Zampas and guys like that. Definitely very good point. Guys, have an awesome Christmas. We know we're coming up to Christmas Eve tomorrow, so it's the 23rd as we're recording this one. Enjoy Christmas. Hopefully have a few beers. Bowl some bounces at your nan in the backyard as well. Wouldn't be Christmas if you didn't do that. And
coming off the long
enjoy.
Run.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. Good luck for this week. Hopefully plenty of green arrows, and we'll catch you next round. See ya.
Happy holidays.